Many years ago on a beautiful spring day, I took my kids on a day trip on an old steam train. As the train clattered across the countryside, we hung our heads out of the windows and felt the sunshine and the wind on our faces and watched the scenery whiz by. Whenever we crossed a road, we'd wave to all the cars that stopped at the crossing. There were always clear warning signs and, in many cases, loud bells and barriers to help keep cars off the track. But at one particular crossing, we could see two big tanker trucks approaching. We noticed with concern that the driver of the first truck wasn't slowing down like he should have. He was driving as though the barrier and the clanging bells and the train weren't even there. To our horror, he crashed through the barrier and into the second-last car of the train. His truck crumpled like a flimsy tin can and went rolling into the ditch. We were all jolted and thrown down, but uninjured. The truck driver wasn't so fortunate. He was really seriously injured. And as we waited and watched for the ambulance to come and for the damaged car of the train to be removed, the question we kept discussing was why the driver didn't stop. Why didn't he pay attention to those warning bells? Why didn't he mind the barrier? Why did he crash right through? How could he not see the train? How could he not notice the warning signals? Why didn't he slam on his brakes or do something to avoid getting hurt? My name is Mary Cassian. Welcome to the Girls Gone Wise video book blog. Today we're going to be talking about boundaries, which is the 11th point of contrast between a wild and a wise woman. A girl gone wise has healthy boundaries. She safeguards herself by taking precautions. Her counterpart, the girl gone wild, disregards boundaries. Like the truck at the railway crossing, she just keeps going. She throws caution to the wind, crashes through, and leaves herself susceptible to getting hurt. The wild thing of Proverbs 7 almost certainly didn't begin her marriage planning to commit adultery. But bit by bit she got to that point. And how did she get there? It was through one small compromise at a time. Just a little bit at a time. One compromise led to another until finally she ended up in an immoral situation that she would have never envisioned at the start. The text tells us that she came out of her house to meet the young man in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. The author implies that there was something inappropriate about her heading out at that time of night. In being out that late, under the cover of darkness, alone, without her husband, her behavior crossed the boundary from appropriate to inappropriate conduct. You couldn't exactly call it sinful conduct. There are no "thou shalt not go out alone after midnight" directives in the Bible, but it was definitely unwise. It opened the door to sin. If she would have had a policy about not hanging out on dark streets and would have abided by that policy, she would not have continued down the track of compromise. After she crossed that first boundary of going out late at night and the second boundary of secretly meeting up with the young man, she crossed the boundary of appropriate touch by kissing him. And then she crossed another boundary when she engaged in inappropriate flattery and flirtation, and another boundary when she invited him over to her place. And before she knew it, she had violated all the boundaries she should have had. She ignored the flashing light, warning bells. It's like she crashed through the barrier and headlong into a relationship that was only going to bring her disaster and a heartload of hurt. In this chapter on boundaries, I encourage you to put up some hedges in your life that are going to safeguard you from sexual sin. When you hear the word hedge, you might imagine a row of shrubs that form a boundary around a yard. Hedges marked off several boundaries of the yard of my childhood home. They lessened the risk of us 6 kids wandering out and of the big dogs wandering in. In a figurative sense, the word hedge refers to a protective method that lessens the risk of something negative happening. It's a personal rule that minimizes my exposure to an unwanted sexual risk. A rule like I will not go out for lunch with a male colleague alone, or like I will copy my spouse on personal emails that I send to men. A hedge is a boundary that helps keep me safe. It helps me protect my sexual purity as well as the purity of the men around me. It's a strategy that lessens the opportunity for sin. The sage father instructed his son that a sensible person sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. A girl gone wild plunges ahead with reckless confidence. She scoffs at the danger, believing that she's in control of the situation. She doesn't believe that she's vulnerable. It won't happen to me, is her mantra. She doesn't think that the danger is substantial. Well, it won't hurt. What harm could it do? She plays with fire, not thinking that she's going to get burned. She doesn't put up hedges and precautions to safeguard herself, and she ends up crashing and burning as a result. I want you to read through the 10 types of hedges in the chapter in the book, and then download the free worksheet on hedges and work out and come up with a list of personal rules that you're going to put in effect in your life to safeguard yourself. Finally, get on the blog. Tell me which boundaries you think make sense and if there are any that you came up with that might be helpful for people to hear about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on Girls Gone Wise.